Hello and good evening, and thank you so much for tuning in for another edition of HT Auto Live. In this edition of HT Auto Live, we are focusing on Skoda Auto India. To speak to us about how the company has been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, the plans, and the road ahead, we're joined by Zac Hollis. He's director at Skoda Auto India. Zac, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us today.
It's my pleasure. It's great to talk to you, and it's great to be live in front of an audience in India. Fantastic.
Yeah, how is it? I believe you're in Prague. How are things looking from there? I mean, we really want to know the outlook from outside of India.
Of course. So I'm in Prague with my family at the moment. And I think things are quite stable here from that point of view, which is good. And it's also good that where possible, people are with their families during this time. I got one daughter in England, and she can't come to see us because, of course, the UK has also had quite high cases of COVID-19. Obviously, I'm working very closely with my team, so I understand everything that's happening in India. And one of the toughest things is that I'm working Indian hours. So on a positive note, in about an hour's time, I will finish today. But on a negative note, I start at 5:30 in the morning, which is pretty tough, as you can imagine, Shub, particularly on a Monday.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. But these are new times, new challenges, and challenges there are plenty. How are things at Skoda overall around the world, and specifically back here in India?
I think the Skoda factories in Europe obviously shut down like the rest of the factories, and they were started back up again in early May, and now the factories are back up, not quite at full capacity because we have to manage the social distancing, so we're producing less jobs per hour than is at full capacity. The dealerships are open and business is starting again. But actually, this is also a similar situation to what is happening in India as the economy and businesses opened up. So our factory, Shub, in Pune and Aurangabad, we have started producing cars again. We've got less jobs per hour, so we're running about half of a normal capacity. But we're also now started on 2-shift system as well. So I'm quite pleased with how things are going. The new BS6 cars are being produced in Pune and also in Aurangabad. Yeah. And also, it's also very positive that the majority of our dealers are now open as well. Some of them with restricted people. So some in Mumbai, obviously it's only 10% of the workforce. But if you go down to the south of India, for some dealerships, we've got almost all of the workforce open. So what's really important is we get the workshops up and running because we need to service and look after customers' cars. That's one thing. But also with the workshops are very important for the employment of the people in our dealerships and their own welfare, that we've got business going on. And obviously our dealers need the return and need to be doing some business. So that's happening.
But Zac, with the cases rising in India, what are you hearing from your team here in the country? Are there challenges that are bigger in the country here than probably what you're seeing elsewhere?
Definitely, the challenges in India are bigger than elsewhere. If I look to China, one of the first markets that obviously locked down, and of course, although we've got some issues now in Beijing, generally speaking, China is quite open now, and we've got good demand for cars. And I think what's also happening in China, what we're learning from China, is that personal mobility is also becoming very important for the Chinese people because they're a little bit concerned about using public transport, etc. So we're actually seeing a little bit of an uplift in the car market in China going forward. If you look at India, obviously our concern in India is the welfare of our people, of our employees, both at the factory and also at the dealerships. But at the same time, we're trying to get business going again because we have got interesting cars, and this is positive. So we launched the 3 cars back at the end of May, and we've got really good interest in those 3 new cars that we launched. And as you know, Shub, we launched those digitally, and we had a fantastic reception of the cars, and it was a lot of fun putting it together as well.
Right. We'll speak about the 3 cars launched in just a bit. But 2020 was a year that was supposed to bring with it a lot of promise, especially for the VW Group and Skoda in particular. There's the India 2.0 project. So for those of us who are not really aware of what that is all about, if you can just give us an insight about the India 2.0 project and what it is all about. And if there have been any changes to those plans because of the current.
So 2020 was what we called the bridging strategy and the bridging year, which was between our existing products ready for our new cars. And we introduced 3 great new products in 2020, which, as you said, we'll talk about in a moment. When it comes to India 2.0, Skoda Auto, obviously heading the whole of the Volkswagen Group business, in India has invested 8,000 crore into India, into production facilities, into network, and of course into sales and marketing. So this investment has gone in, and the majority of it is being spent. We are not cutting down on any of our investments in India. We continue with everything on track, and our plan is still to launch the first of those India 2.0 cars in Q2 2021. The first is a mid-sized SUV, and I'm really excited about bringing the car to the marketplace. It'll be in the booming SUV segment in India, and it'll be very competitively priced because it's based on having 90 to 95% localization. And of course, as you know, it's very important in India that we have a car designed for India and of course made in India using local suppliers and local employees. This is very important if you're going to be competitive and if you're going to get some volume in India. So that's the first car that comes from India 2.0. And then the second car coming will be a sedan that will come at the end of 2021.
Right. So an SUV and a sedan. Now, these
Yes.
are two separate spectrums. I mean, there is so much of demand for SUVs, specifically in India. And as a result, maybe sedans have taken a beating here. So what's the thought process behind getting a sedan after an SUV? I get why an SUV, but sedan, how difficult is it to actually have a product in that segment?
I think the three-box sedan still plays a vitally important segment in the marketplace for people. And let's also remember that part of the reason why the three-box sedan market has been falling is because there's been nothing new. There's been nothing new for customers. Everybody has been focusing on SUVs. Everybody's been launching new SUVs in the market. Even the new entrants into India, such as Kia and MG, have started with SUVs. So therefore, naturally, the segment has boomed. But when we start seeing brand new products launched into the sedan market, then this market is here to stay and will continue, I think, to be an important segment within the Indian market. So I'm very excited about both of those cars.
Right. I get the part about sedans, the sedan segment not having new exciting products, and maybe that's one of the reasons. But do you think Skoda is a little late to the party when it comes to the compact SUVs, considering how much they've boomed over the last 5, 6, 7 years?
Of course, as a sales and marketing guy, I'd rather have cars earlier. But, it takes a long time to develop cars for the marketplace, a long time to engineer cars for the marketplace. And we've always said quite clearly that our cars will come in Q2 2021. And I'm very confident of the success of those cars. So yes, of course, we'd always like cars earlier, but we get the cars when we get them. And, every time I have a conversation, we get one step nearer towards the launch date too.
Right. But the 3 cars that were launched towards the end of May, let's talk about those now. These are cars, at least Rapid is a familiar car in the sedan segment. So the Rapid was launched, the Superb facelift, as well as the Karoq. Now, I'll speak specifically first up about Rapid. What is it about the car? How do you now project the new Rapid in a market which is in a segment which is sort of shrinking, in a market which is not really seeing too much demand because of the current situation? How difficult is the road ahead for Rapid? And tell us why I, as a person who wants to go out and buy a sedan, should consider the Rapid.
Of course, the Rapid has been on the marketplace for some time now. And even though it's been around for around 8 years, in 2019, we still achieved 10% segment share. So it still has a really good following in India and is still very popular in India. And 10% segment share for a car that's 8 years old is a fantastic achievement. What we've done now is completely refreshed it with a brand new BS6 engine. So we were criticized in the past for our MPI engines not being particularly efficient, not being particularly economical. And now we've got a new 1-litre TSI 3-cylinder engine. It's incredible, the engine itself. I mean, it has 23% more efficiency than the outgoing MPI. It has more power and more torque than the outgoing car. So it's really fantastic. And I am 100% confident that we will not lose sales by not having a diesel car in India. I think this car delivers everything that you want out of a diesel. It doesn't have the same torque as you get from a diesel, of course, but over the long term, it's also more economical than a diesel going forward as well. So this car is phenomenal in terms of its engine and its package. And I'd say anybody who was worrying about driving a car with a 3-cylinder 1-litre TSI engine should go out there and test it. Go out, test the car and then give us your opinion, because we're getting a lot of very positive feedback. And of course, I hope soon that you'll also be able to drive the car, Shub, as well.
Right, right. Um, but what do you have to say about the consumer at large who, when he's going out to buy a car, in this particular case, a sedan, he would perhaps not consider a Skoda immediately, that the brand would not pop up immediately vis-a-vis some of the other stronger brands in that particular segment. Now, how does Skoda plan to address that, A? And B, let's address the elephant in the room. There are concerns about Skoda's post-sales network. There are people who are very, very happy. I personally know of a lot many people who are very happy with the post-sales network. But then, unfortunately, I also know people who are not too pleased on that front. So how does Skoda in India address those two concerns?
I think if you firstly talk about the popularity of the Rapid, as I said to you earlier, we achieved 10% segment share of the Rapid last year. So a very successful car, and the car is very well known in India. Everybody knows the car. It's very well known. And of course, we will do our bit in terms of marketing the car. And we've already started doing this digital, and the car is also on TV as well. And we'll continue with a marketing presence around the Rapid. So I'm very confident that we will get good exposure for that car going forward. If you look at the service issue, so many people have criticized the after-sales support from Skoda, but the good news is I've had lots of mails and messages from people who are very happy with the service. So many of our dealers are doing a good job. There's no doubt about it. Sometimes some dealers have let us down from that point of view, and it's our job as a manufacturer to be customer centric, to put the customer at the center of what we're doing. And this is what we are striving to do through the dealer network. And we're striving to appoint dealers who actually are customer centric as well. It's important that we have the right dealer partners going forward. It's also important that we have enough of them. A customer wrote to me and said he was in the East, the Seven Sisters area. He says, how can I get my car serviced? You don't have a dealer. I mean, this is a very good observation. And we will go from 80 sales and service points now. Over the next 3 years, we will go to 200. So one of the steps for being more customer centric is we will be much more accessible. This is one of the steps we will do. The other thing is 2 years ago, we reduced our parts prices by over 18%. This is now filtering in to the people buying the cars. That's an important thing we did. And of course, we now have available, we were the first manufacturer in India to have 4 years warranty for our cars, and now you can purchase an additional 2 years warranty and have 6 years warranty as well. So there's a number of things that we're doing to improve that service experience. But I think one of the most important things we have is to have the right attitude, the right training, and the right dealer partners going forward. So all I could say is that don't let the historical issues you've had about service tarnish your opinion about the brand. And I would talk to people with recent experiences, and I believe we're doing a good job at the moment. We've got more to learn, of course, and we've got more tools to improve on, but I'm getting really good feedback at the moment from customers about the after-sales experience.
Right, Zach. Part of the solution is to actually identify the problem, however many they may be. And it's fantastic that you're saying what you're saying. And I personally have seen how you engage with your followers on Twitter. You're one of the most active people that I have seen in the industry on Twitter. So that's fantastic.
I care. If a customer is not happy, if something's happened to his car, if it's broken, if a dealer's not looked after him how I want, then I will react, and I will push my team to react as well. Because it's by me doing this, it's by leading by example that I get the rest of the organization and I get the dealer network to follow as well. And sometimes dealers will write to me and say, I picked this up on your Twitter account and I've dealt with it already, and here's the response. Which is good, right? Because they're actually caring about the kind of response as well. And as a leader, I believe we have to lead by example. And that caring and that customer centricity starts with me, in my opinion.
Right. Fantastic. Now, we've spoken about the Rapid. We've spoken about all that Skoda is doing to win back the confidence of customers. And if there are any complaints, sporadic ones, those are being addressed. Now, let's also talk a little bit about the Karoq. Now, that's an SUV that is catering to a niche audience. Is that correct? At least at the price point, it seems like it's catering to a niche audience. Would you tell us a little more about the SUV?
So Karoq, I've called, is like a baby Kodiaq. It's a smaller Kodiaq, but it's a full-sized SUV. It's the biggest and the most safest SUV in its class, and it really is a premium SUV. So we have 9 airbags. We have the biggest boot in its class. We have the widest car in its class, and we have one of the longest cars in its class. So the guys have done a tremendous job in terms of positioning of that car, but it really is a big luxury SUV. So I would urge people, again, if you're not sure about the price and the value of the car, go along, see the car, test drive the car. And the good thing is lots of people are doing that. We are taking 10 orders a day for this car, which is really fantastic. I'm really pleased with how this car is going. And I mean, at the end of the day, I can tell people I have 1,000 of these cars in this initial batch of CBUs, and if I take 10 orders a day, then I really don't have an issue from a sales and a performance point of view. So the car is going really well. It's selling really well. We're delivering cars to customers now, and I'm really pleased with how it's going.
Right. Another car that was like a rapid fire was the
3
Octavia
cars
RS.
on the same day. Yes.
Yes, that launch was fantastic, but there was also
Yeah.
the Octavia RS before that. The online channels were buzzing on that particular day when you opened the order. Tell us about the RS. Tell us about how it's been since that launch.
So literally from the day I arrived here in India, I started talking to customers and started talking to dealers. And I've been here now for over 18 months in India now. And they said to me, you need to give us back another RS. We need more of these. We had 500 of the CKDs and they're all gone. So the first thing I did is I went to Skoda Auto and I said, I need more RSs. And they kind of said, it's a bit difficult to do. But I said, okay, I'll take FBUs. I'll take CBUs in. And they said, oh, that's okay. But you've got to charge for them. You've got to charge for the import duties, and they've got to be a business case for them because we can sell as many as we want in Germany, in the UK, and Spain or whatever. So we agreed we would take 200. We took a batch of 200. They all came here on one ship and came in. And then we decided, I tell you what, we've got to be fair here. How do we allocate these in a fair way? I could have said to the dealers, okay, you sold 10% of our volume last year, you get 10% of the car. But that's unfair if the demand is more in the city he is in. So that's why we decided to sell all online. We decided to sell them all directly. And we were one of the first manufacturers that had an online sale presence, but not just online in terms of booking. We actually took customer deposits as well. So we were serious inquiries and serious bookings we had. Within the first 24 hours, we had sold half of them. And within a week, we had sold them all. We have a few cancellations now because sadly, obviously people's personal circumstances have changed now. And of course, if someone situation changes and they cancel, I'm sure it's upsetting for them and of course not good for us. But, nevertheless, the cancellations are also being snapped up by customers also. So I'm so pleased by the way it's gone. Indian customers said, give us the more RS. We brought 200 in and we sold them. And the dealers have had a lot of fun. And I've seen those customers have sent me videos of them driving the cars. They're that excited about this RS245.
But do you think the demand is more than what you had anticipated? I mean, there are more people willing to buy an RS.
It's a little bit more.
Perhaps the price may be a bit
not
of
much.
a letdown.
Exactly. When we brought the batch in before, it was a CKD. So it came in as a parts and components car, and it was priced accordingly because of the tax advantage of doing that. We bring these cars in, we brought them in as a CBU. By bringing them in as a CBU, we have to pass on the customs duty to the customers. Otherwise, they couldn't bought the car. So they were a premium car, and they were priced as a premium. And that's why I said, okay, let's take 200 and let's really look for automotive Skoda RS enthusiasts. And we have found them. And that's the positive thing from the point of view. So
But
probably
what about the
sorry,
go on.
No,
what about the prospects of localization? I mean, that sort of brings the prices down.
Yeah, localization. I mean, not in the current RS is the A7, which is now finished being produced in Europe. So that won't come anymore. That's finished. What I've got to now look at is the A8, which is the next generation Octavia. We will launch the next generation Octavia early in 2021. And then I'll have another conversation with the factory and say, okay, we've launched this car. Now give me some RS of the Octavia A8. And that's what I will try and do.
Right. No, fantastic. But how many of these plans can potentially get affected due to coming back to the unfortunate topic about the COVID pandemic? How many of these plans are potentially going to get affected because of the situation that the world is in?
Of course, the original plan was to launch all of our cars in April. So that was initially affected because we launched them virtually on the 26th of May, as you saw and many of our Skoda fans saw. So towards the end of this year, we will launch the Kodiaq BS6 with a 2-litre TSI engine. That is not affected by any plans. That car is on schedule to be launched at the end of this year. And then in early in 2021, we will launch the new Octavia. I was hoping to launch that at the end of 2020, but it slipped into 2021. But it hasn't slipped by much. We're talking a couple of months. So this is okay. And then what we're trying to do, what I'm really trying to do with the engineers and the whole team in Pune is to protect the launch date of the first India 2.0 SUV in 2021. That's what we're trying to do. And at the moment, things look good, but they're still evaluating it, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on the guys. But to be honest, they're putting pressure on. They're creating their own pressure as well. They want to achieve the SOPs.
So what's the time frame for the first India 2.0 project?
Q2 2021. Yeah.
Right. So how does Skoda chart its way from here? That's my final question. In around the world and in India as well. From here, how difficult is it for Skoda in particular and the automotive industry the world over?
So let me start with Skoda, and then I'll talk about the automotive industry. So I've been in Skoda, as many people know, for over 20 years, and I've been in the Volkswagen Group for 30 years now this year. And, I've seen many changes in that time. But I do think that in the next 10 years, you're going to see more changes than you've seen in the last 30 years. I'm confident about that. Skoda last year was selling around 1.2 million cars worldwide. Our biggest market is still China with around 300,000 cars. And then, of course, markets like Germany, the Czech Republic, the UK are also very strong for us. But my plan, this is just a little bit of a side, but my plan here is to make India up there in the top 5 as a market for Skoda worldwide. And that's what we will achieve. So Skoda worldwide is well poised to take advantage of what's coming in the next 10 years. And of course, when you talk about what's coming within Skoda and the automotive industry, what you're talking about, of course, is something we call NEV, or new energy vehicles. New energy vehicles are without doubt the future of the automotive industry worldwide, be that electric or be that hybrid or be that some alternative. We already have several electric and hybrid cars on sale in Europe. At the moment, they're quite niche, so they're expensive. But there's a reason for that, because the cost of the batteries is so high at the moment that the only real electric cars, the fully electric cars with good range that actually work commercially, are more expensive cars, because the cost of the battery is up to 30% of the car. So what we're going to see over the next 10 years, in my opinion, is more democratization of electric cars. So the cost of batteries have to come down, the charging infrastructures have to increase, and then we'll start to see more electric cars.
Would you then say India is still a fair distance away from really welcoming the...
fair distance away from, but India is looking to what's happening in Europe, looking to what is also happening in China. And what you find in these markets is it's not necessarily consumer demand that is forcing the electric car. It's actually government legislation and government push. This is what you saw in China. If you take a market like Shanghai, you would pay 10,000 euros for a registration plate in Shanghai. If you take an electric car, the registration plate is free. So the government incentives are there. And of course, not only that is that governments control manufacturers, because we have to achieve average levels of CO2 across our fleet. The same in China, the same in Europe. And, I'm confident the Indian legislators will look to Europe, they'll look to China, and they say, right, this is the way to go. The question is, when do we get there? The suppliers have to be ready, the OEMs have to be ready, and of course, the infrastructure and charging infrastructure has to be ready as well. It will come. Once you can carry on, once you can drive for 500 kilometers on one battery, once you can charge it easily, and once the initial purchase price is not so expensive, then demand will happen. But we're nowhere near that point at the moment in India. So that's my on the automotive industry for the next 10 years.
Right, Zach. A lot of people tell me it's not a question of if, but it's a question of when, as far as electric vehicles.
I believe that's the case as well.
Right. So while we do wait for a Skoda electric vehicle to come into India, in the meantime, we have a lot of things to look forward to from over at the Skoda camp. Zach, thank you for taking the time out. It was really insightful, all the details that you've given about the cars that were just launched and also the products under the India 2.0, which are, I'm sure, very, very exciting. So thank you once again for taking the time out. And to all our viewers as well, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Shub. Thank you.